Dice Bob que no estamos en la iglesia, que si se quieren acercar acá al frente, que puede, para estar aquí más en cortito y en confianza. Ahora es que gracias por estar aquí, la hora sabemos que era media complicada, nos tuvimos que acoplar a la agenda de la reunión anual de consejeros. Muchos se están conectando por Zoom, nada más estoy viendo si ya está abierta. ¿Ya? Ok, perfecto. Pues bueno, entonces arrancamos. Pepe, si quieres tú comenzar dándonos la bienvenida.
Okay, English, right?
Yes, English.
Okay, well, perfect. So thank you everybody for coming, and thank you to everyone on Zoom. We've been talking a lot about Bob Chapman and the work that he's done with Raj, forever. So it's really a great pleasure to be able to have him in this discussion and throughout the day in the course of the meetings that we're going to be having. So Bob, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, your experience, and allowing us to pick your brain and try to get something out of.
There's not much up there, so good luck. There's a lot down here, but not up there. I'd like to add, just to set the stage, I'm an accountant, so keep your expectations down, okay? And the greatest compliment somebody ever gave me is, I can't believe you're an accountant. So, but and again, I'm sure if we did an intelligence test in this room, I would have the lowest intelligence in the room, but I was blessed with common sense, creativity, and a positive attitude. If you blend those together, that's what's created this journey, okay? Common sense, creativity, and a passion for people. So anyway, that's just keep your expectations down, okay?
Well, thank you, Bob. Really, it's an honor to have you with us. We've been just for the group here and the ones connected via Zoom. We've been since early morning with students, professors, and now with the business community. It's a pleasure to have you here, and also via Zoom. Thank you for connecting with us. And it's going to be a brief panel with some questions for Bob. And first, a question that we've always been asked. It's been 2 years now that we launched the Conscious Enterprise Center here at Tec de Monterrey. And it's always a conflict to many business leaders, balancing profit and purpose. How can we both work on that? What benefits come from aligning all of these concepts also with the concept of conscious capitalism?
Well, I'd say to you, the way we look at it is, it's kind of like you have to balance your work-life balance. You got to be responsible to your family, but responsible to your career. It's no different, okay? Life is a balance, okay? But obviously we are guided by 3 simple words: people, purpose, and performance. And it starts with people. Our responsibility is the people we have the privilege of leading. So it's not difficult when you understand the purpose, okay? And the purpose is to create human and economic value and harmony. There's no disharmony by caring for people. People sometimes say to me, how do you justify the expense of caring? And I said, how do you justify not caring? I don't have to justify caring. You've got to justify yourself, because again, we live in the most prosperous world in our history, and we have the highest level of depression, anxiety, and suicide we've ever had, because most people feel they work for an organization that doesn't care about them. My board doesn't challenge me. Our share price has gone up 14% a year, compounded for 25 years. We've grown from 20 million to 3.6 billion with 13,000 people. And nobody debates this, okay? Because when you treat people with respect and dignity, they will give you gifts that they didn't even know they had. And the joy you will get in your heart of seeing people feel cared for, I've never had to justify caring. You say purpose, I say the word caring. Okay, does that make sense? So I've never been challenged, because we have a vibrant business model and a culture of caring. And it's created something the world is looking at. Can you really care about people and create a business? And the answer is, I don't know how you can create a business and not care about people.
Thank you, Bob. You've talked a lot about empathy today. What's the role of empathy in leaders? How can leaders cultivate empathetic workplaces?
Well, the foundation of empathy is to listen without judgment, okay? What I've realized is that we're all born with different characteristics that we accept, different intellectual ability, different physical ability, different, color of eyes and hair and skin, and we understand that. But what we realize in this journey, we're also born with a personality type, and there's, in the DISC profile, there's 4 different types, D, I, S, and C. And if we did a test, all of you would have one of those 4 qualities. One's not better than the other. They're 4 distinct, just like color of your hair and skin and so forth. And what we've realized is that we have a world where you're born with this lens through which you see the world, okay? You didn't choose that lens. It's defined by your personality type. And we have a world where, we don't understand why you don't see the things the way I see it. So in our schools, we teach speech, how to articulate your thoughts, and then debate, how critical thinking and to win debate. And we win debates, okay? Guess what we don't teach in our schools? We don't teach people to listen. What we've learned in our journey, this has been a 20-year journey, the greatest of all human qualities of caring is to listen without judgment, to act and to understand that I have 6 kids. Do you think 6 kids, because they're born of us, have the same view of life? Nope. Okay? We're uniquely different. Okay? Because we have a lens through which we see the world, which shapes the way we react to the world. And what we teach people in our leadership fundamentals class is how to flex and understand that people see things differently. And the greatest gift you can give to them is to listen to them, not to try and convince them they're wrong. Okay, but in our education system, we teach it. So we use the word empathy. Empathy is a result. Our goal was not to create a more empathetic organization. Our goal was to transform managers into leaders. In English, I hate the word management. I wish when you leave this room, you will never use that word again. Why? Because what does management mean? It means the manipulation of others for your success. I'd like you all to walk out here to be leaders, people who look at the people they have the privilege of leading as somebody's precious child and treat them with respect and dignity within a business model that gives them a sense of a security in the future. Because remember, empathy is a result of teaching people how to care. So you can't say to people, you need to care for the people in your organization. They say, okay, how do I do that? Again, so what we found is that the CEO Roundtable, America's top 200 business leaders, said we need to think about more than just the shareholder. A, it's sad they had to say that. And B, they have no idea how to do that. Okay, they were never taught to care. They were taught and they were promoted because they achieved results. And in our society, we define success as money, power, and position. Doesn't matter how you get it, as long as it's legal, and then you can write checks to charity and everybody will say you're a wonderful person. The greatest act of charity, of empathy in the world is to treat the people you have the privilege of leading like you would like your son or daughter treated if they worked in that organization. That's our standard of care. Treat them no less than you would like your son or daughter treated. Empathy is the result, not the intent. Does that make sense? So we don't teach empathy. We teach empathetic listening. Listening to validate the worth of others, not to debate that they're right or wrong. So that's where education just fell short of the 3. Speech, critical thinking, and empathetic listening. That's where we fall short in the world. Cynthia and I have a nonprofit as a result of what we learned in our university. And we teach now, we've taught 13,000 people in the United States in our nonprofit to listen with empathy without judgment. And it is transformative. It is incredibly healing. So the biggest thing I want you to learn from, the greatest part of truly human leadership is listening with empathy without judgment. Understanding we are uniquely different and you need to flex, just like you can't treat all your kids the same. And again, this is not an American issue. We have 13,000 people from China to India to Germany to France to England to America. It's a universal truth. People simply want to know they matter. And the way you show them they matter is to listen with them without judgment.
Bob, one of the things that I've learned from you, is since we got to know each other about 10, 11 years ago and we wrote that book together, in my business education of 2 years MBA, 4 years PhD, it was all about the head and the wallet. It's all about the models, the numbers, the analytics, the frameworks, and it's always about that bottom line. And I realized after meeting you that I had never been inspired and I had never been emotionally connected to what I was doing. And I think this is the great difference between Barry Wehmiller and a traditional business, is that you bring that heart and spirit, right? It's about inspiration and it's about caring, right? And I think that has made all the difference. So can you talk about, you also went through 2 business degrees, right? Is that something that was missing in your business education, and the power of those 2 things, inspiring people and caring for them, which are 2 separate things?
Yeah, as I said to the students this morning, I look back, I teach every year, second-year MBA students at Washington University on defining moments in my life that define kind of my career journey to share with MBA students. And one of the things I realized is that I took management classes, got a management degree, and I got a job in management, so I thought I was supposed to manage people. And people came to me with issues, and I told them what to do, and they did it. And I enjoyed that. People did what I asked them to do, okay? Now, at the same time I was going through that journey from education to experience, Cynthia and I were raising 6 kids. If every time your kids come to you with a problem and you tell them what to do, you're depriving your children of being able to make good decisions as they leave your care. And we find adults are the same way. Our job is not to tell people what to do. Our job is to inspire people with a vision. Where are you going? Why do you want to go there? And when you get there, why will you have taken your people to a better place? I tell our people in our company, and I hope you could too, my job is to make sure that you feel a sense of security and safety, that you have a future in my care, that we're not going to walk in one day and lay you off, or downsize you, because if you do, psychological studies show it's one of the lowest points in your life when somebody lets you go, okay? When somebody walks into your desk and say, I'm going to need you to clean out your desk because we've decided to lay you off. So my job is to build a robust business model so people feel safe and valued. And the good news, when they do that, they behave dramatically differently when they feel insecure, okay? When a major company lays off 10,000 people out of 200,000 to meet the needs of the market, to respond to investors, they don't think about the impact it made on the 10,000 people, and they don't think about the impact it made on the 190,000 people. So again, I believe we were blessed with a vision of the way the world was intended to be, where we create human and economic value and harmony, and we could heal this brokenness we all feel in the world right now. Because why would you want your kids to get a job when there's an 88% chance they're not going to be cared for? Why would we raise kids and treat them with respect and dignity and send them out into this broken world? And we don't need a change in government. All we need to do is start creating tomorrow's leaders, because we have learned in our journey, not intentionally, what we learned, you can teach people to care. You cannot ask people to care, but you can teach people to care. You can't ask people to speak Chinese. You have to teach them how to speak Chinese. And the 3 fundamentals of caring are empathetic listening, which is the greatest act of caring, recognition and celebration. It's called shining a light in your organization, looking for the goodness and holding it up, and saying thank you. And it's amazing the impact that makes. So we know in raising, and I got that in raising 6 kids. If you don't compliment your kids 5 times more and you suggest things they could do better, it's difficult for them to hear it. But if you spend more time saying, thank you for getting your homework done, I'm glad you came down to dinner on time, but I wish you could wash the car after you get it dirty or something. So they can receive constructive feedback if you spend more time catching them doing things right. So again, this is a journey. I learned more in raising 6 kids than I did in business school. Okay? Simon Sinek and I say all the time, parenting and leadership is identical. What is parenting? You all know it's the stewardship of these precious lives that come into our marriage through birth, adoption, or second marriages, which we all take very seriously. What's leadership? Identical. The stewardship of these precious lives of people who walk in our building every day, who simply want to know they matter, and that is the gift you could give that would be with them forever and heal the brokenness we're feeling in this world. So business could be the most powerful force for good in the world if we simply knew how to care for the people we have the privilege of leading. Leadership is not a job, it is a privilege, okay? And it's a profound privilege because you will dramatically impact their marriage. And remember, I was never told that the way I would run Barry Wehmler would affect people's marriage, their health, or their relationship with their kids. That is 95% of the feedback when we teach people how to be leaders. They tell us how they're better fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters, and how their health is better. So again, I believe we've been blessed with something that could heal the brokenness we're all feeling in the world if we simply knew how to care for the people we have the privilege of leading.
Bob, there are two things in the business world that you see. There's a focus on the short term, and there's sort of an obsession with growth, constant growth. So I want to touch upon those two because you're very different in how you think about those. Jim Collins uses the metaphor of getting the right people in the right seats in the bus. And you've taken that metaphor and you've turned it around and said, no, it's not about the right people in the right seats. It's about having a safe bus, which is your business model, so that you know that this business will thrive. And it's about having a driver who knows where we're going, which is the leadership. And the bus will come around again and again. If you don't get on the bus the first time, the bus will be back. And the idea of what you all call courageous patience, which is not a quality we find a lot in business, right? That if you don't get it, so when they acquire a company and some people don't buy into this new culture that they're talking about because they've been hurt by previous leadership and they're cynical because they've been disappointed in the past, they don't say, okay, you're out. They say, it's okay, you'll get it when you get it. So the bus will keep coming around, and when you're ready, you get on the bus. So if you could talk about this idea of courageous patience, because it does take courage to be patient. And anything worthwhile doesn't happen instantly. It takes time.
You know, we have 13,000 people, and every one of them is a unique individual, okay? No two are alike. And what we've realized, that courageous patience, is I don't know your background. I don't know what kind of leaders you had before. And it was actually the idea of courageous patience came from Bill Urey of Harvard, who wrote the book Getting DS. He's a world peace negotiator. He said, Bob, you remind me of a bus that's on a circuit. The truly human leadership bus comes up and says, would you like to join us? And you say, I'm just not ready to accept it. We said, that's okay, because we'll be back, okay? And we let people buy into it. We don't force feed it, okay? And you say, well, but then the natural comment is, well, what do you do about the people that don't get it? And I said, we've had people that don't get it, even though there's a gentleman named Randall Fleming who works in our plant in Wisconsin who was one tough son of a gun. And he was the last person who was ever going to get it. He was in the military, and basically if you walked in the plant where he was, you just stayed away from this guy. He is now a professor in our university. When Harvard came in to meet him, they wanted to write a book about him because they have never seen a more dramatic transformation. But we gave Randall time for him to decide to step on the bus. We didn't push him on the bus. We didn't tell him, you're out of here unless you're on the bus. So what the idea is, Raj, is we were taught, focus on the people who do believe. Focus on the early adopters. Hold them up and say, Mary or Bill, thank you for believing in us. Thank you for what you're doing. And remember, recognition and celebration, I thought was, hey, that a good job. You've been with us 20 years. Here's more. I haven't given an award for years of service in decades. Some people who are here 20, 30 years, we wish they had left 20 years ago, okay? We award people for their goodness, okay? You could be with us 6 months and get recognized for your goodness. So we live in a world where we focus on the brokenness, okay? In English it said, what bleeds reads. We have people in our care for 40 hours a week. We want to focus on the goodness in people. So we look for the goodness, we raise it up and thank you, and it inspires others to eventually decide to join us. And eventually if somebody does not, I'll call it in the words of a question, get it, what do you do in families? You have what's called hard love. Parenting is not about doing what your kids want you to do every day, okay? Sometimes hard love is exactly what your kids need to address the consequences of their behavior. So we have hard love, you know. Sometimes the best thing you can do is to say to Bill or Mary, you know, I just can't let you hurt people like this anymore, and I'm sure that you'll learn. But treat them with dignity and respect. You don't fire them. Remember, I hate the word. I hate the word management. The other word I hate is fire people. You know where that came from? French firing squad. Okay? So why do we refer? Would you like your child fired? Okay? Why do we use these words? We have the broken, in English, we have this broken language of business. Okay, we have managers, bosses, and supervisors. Name any one of which you would like to have, okay? We need mentors, leaders, and coaches, people who genuinely look at the people who have the privilege of leading. So this courageous patience was just the result of focusing on the goodness and giving other people time to embrace it, and spend more time on the goodness so that people that don't get it have a chance to embrace it. And again, we have some phenomenal examples of people who've done the journey. So, and we have very few examples where people that don't, okay? But sometimes the best thing you can do is through hard love, with compassion and understanding, ask them to move on, and they feel the consequence of their behavior. So again, that's kind of the idea of our leadership model. Focus on the people who do get it, and don't let the people who don't get it ruin it for the people that do get it.
And then, Bob, on this question of growth, as I said, there's an obsession with growth, especially in public companies, but really in all businesses. Now, you've been growing at an extraordinary rate. Bob has been acquiring 10 to 15 companies a year for many years. We're up to about 140 companies now, and has never sold a single company. And many of them were struggling and dying businesses. And they've all been turned around. Same business, same people, same location. It was struggling, and now it's thriving. So I feel like the difference between the way you grow and the way other companies grow, you feel an obligation to grow because you've got an approach to running the business where actually lifts people up and gives them a future. There are others who have a compulsion to grow. We must grow by 10%, 12%. What do we have to do in order to make that happen? So can you talk a little bit about healthy growth, which I believe what yours is, that the more you grow, the better life gets for more people in the world. And there are people now all over the world waiting for Bob Chapman to show up and buy their company because they know that they will have a future. Their children will have a future and their communities will have. There are other people who are dreading that their company was going to get acquired by, let's say, a 3G Capital out of Brazil, right? Which has the old model. You're going to lay off a bunch of people. You're going to put everybody else on extreme targets of cost cutting and revenue growth and so forth. So talk about healthy growth versus compulsive growth and why you feel this obligation to grow. Despite, I mean, you're not doing this for the money, I know that. And you could be enjoying your 28 grandchildren and your beautiful homes and relaxing, and yet you're on fire to continue to grow. So talk about your incentive or your desire to grow and what motivates you.
Well, let me start off by saying I began to adopt company. I used the word acquire, but now I say adopt because nobody wants to be acquired, okay? Because we were in an old industry that had no future. And about 1985, I tried to create a future from the historic business I inherited from my dad. But one day I said to our team, I said, guys, I'm proud of our history, but our history does not give us a future. And I'm not an engineer. I can't develop a new product, but maybe we could acquire some companies that would give us into better markets with a better future. So that's why I began, to give us a future. Now, I would say today, I always say a company is either growing or it's dying. Okay, growth is a vital sign. You know, I'd like to think when we as individuals stop growing, we start dying too. Because I think even at age 78, I still love growing and impacting the world. So again, our goal is, and it's a little bit like a faith organization. Every time you open up a new church in a new community, you know, it's a vibrant part of that community. When we adopt a company, I sit down to the people, I said, welcome to the family, you've got a good future with us. And people will cry. They say, I never thought I was going to work for a company that cared about me. And that's the sadness in the world. People don't feel cared for. There's this poverty of dignity in the world because people are seen as a means to an end, not as the end itself. And so again, I think we're at 140 some adoptions in the world. But the good news about our culture, in the last 7 or 8 years, the talent of the people that have joined our company is astounding. They're joining us from major corporations because they've heard about our culture. The number one reason that talent is joining our company is because of our culture, okay? The number one reason every one of our acquisitions last year, our adoptions last year, I think last year was our biggest year, was because of our culture, okay? Because they want their company, because they have no option other than us to care. So we didn't start caring to attract companies or talent. We started caring because what's the alternative to caring, okay? So, but as a result of that, the attraction of talent, the attraction of opportunities is unbelievable. You know, we're at 3.6 billion. You know, I started at 20 million, and we operate all over the world. The joy, you know, we have a world that's in a great deal of conflict. But during COVID, some of the Russian CEOs were some of our biggest admirers. They actually sent me emails that they didn't let people go during COVID in Moscow because they read my book. So I would say to you, the chance to take your message and grow means you'll impact more people's life. You're not growing, to me, you're not healthy. You're not as healthy as you should be, okay? And organizations that grow have a vibrancy and they give people a better future. But again, you've got to have a good business model. It really concerns me right now that acquisitions in America are quite often by private equity firms that are very short-term in nature. I bought it for $1, and in 5 to 7 years, I'll sell it for $4, and I'll give people an 18% return. There's no human part of that, okay? Never do they say, we're going to treat people with respect and dignity in these companies we're going to acquire. It's a totally mathematical model, and when I began in business, there was no such thing as private equity firms that I recall, okay? There was diversified companies like ITW and Dover and General Electric, but there was not. And so right now, the short-term nature of both public and private companies is really sad to me, because because we're very, you know, short-term, profit-oriented organization, and then you write checks to charity, and everybody will say you're wonderful. You may have laid off 1,500 people, shut down 2 plants, destroyed lives, but you can write a check to charity, and we'll have a banquet to celebrate you. Okay? The greatest act of charity is not the checks you write. It's how you treat the people you have the privilege of leading. The reason we need charities is to heal all the brokenness we're creating in the economic model, okay, that is causing this anxiety, depression, and suicide among young people. In universities, it's now called an epidemic of anguish. Okay, when I spoke at Brown University, they said that the mental instability of incoming students is at an epidemic level in American universities. And they think it's social media, they think it's drugs, and I think, where did they come from? They came from our families, okay? And I think to heal this poverty of dignity, this epidemic of anguish, we need to send these parents home feeling valued, so they treat their spouse, they behave in a way their kids see and inspires them because they saw a more loving relationship between the parents. So again, our whole theory is we want to continue to grow by adopting companies around the world. And people say you don't sell their companies. When you bring kids in the world, would you sell them? Okay? No, you're not going to sell your kids. Why would I sell our companies? I mean, we built up a medical device company that's very attractive, performing very highly. I think we have maybe 50 million invested in it, and we were just offered 300 million. We didn't even consider it, okay? Because if we'd considered it, it'd basically invalidate our entire purpose. If it's just a matter of money and the price, then we're just like everybody else. So I would say to you that we're trying to show that business can be a source for good in the world, where people can count on us for a future. They can decide to raise a family, they can decide to buy a home, and they can live in the safety and security of your care. And that will heal the brokenness we're seeing in this world. But this university's got to start teaching that. You can't simply ask people to care. You have to teach them how to care. It's a teachable skill.
So, Bob, one of the barriers that we come across when we talk about conscious capitalism, when the words caring and well-being are discussed, is that we think of caring as pampering. When we think of well-being, we think about, okay, let's just do yoga and get some salads into the cafeteria instead of vending machines. Talk to us about the hard part of caring, the hard part of well-being, the hard decisions, the hard choices. You've mentioned a lot of examples around our kids. You know, if we're only pampering, we'd be feeding them candy all day.
Yeah.
There's these really tough situations from a leadership perspective that need to happen under this scope of deep care and thinking about the well-being.
Remember, we didn't begin to try and teach people how to care. We began to try and create disciples who believe what we believe, that to become leaders. So to transform managers into leaders. So that's how. So what I've shared with you is all of a sudden we realized that this formula that Brian and the team had created caring. Okay, so I would say to you, the people that struggle with this is because they don't have the skill to do it. It's the easiest thing we do. I mean, it's like feeding candy to kids. People want to be cared for, and when they feel cared for, which we had no idea. So Washington University and Georgetown did a study some years ago of our culture, and they found that 79% of our people feel we care for them, compared to 88%, just the opposite in our country, that feel they don't care for. But what they found, which was a big surprise to them, was a high degree of altruism. And I'm an accountant. I didn't know what the word altruism meant, so I had to look it up, okay? But altruism means doing something for somebody else without expecting anything in return. That's what they found, okay? So I would say to you, it hasn't been a difficult journey. I'm an accountant from North St. Louis, okay? I'm not a psychologist. I'm not very smart. I just have been blessed with a message that we have been able to develop and grow. And again, Raj said it, Simon said it, Bill Years, we have created something that people say they have never seen anything like it, where people feel cared for. And so it's not very hard. I can do it, guys. I know if we did an intelligence test, every one of you would be way above mine, okay? It's not hard to care. It's just a skill that is teachable. And when people feel cared for, they'll give you gifts you had no idea, because you're basically putting premium fuel in the business model and the performance. Now, we didn't do it to get people engaged. We didn't do it to improve engagement. We did it because maybe some of our team members or some of your kids or relatives, okay? And again, the greatest compliment somebody ever given me is, can I give you my daughter's resume? I'd like her to work for you. Okay, what greater compliment can somebody give you than to want their child to be a part of your organization? So again, it is not hard to care. It is hard not to care for me, okay? It's just the lens through which you look at this. You say, well, because remember, we have a society where success is, money, power, and position, not caring. And don't you all want to be successful in this room and on, who are seeing this? So how do we define success? Is money, power, and position success, or is living a life in service of others true success? Can somebody who ended up being the best cook in your cafeteria, could they be considered as successful as the president of the university? In my view, if they're using their gifts fully in service of others, that is a life of meaning and purpose. So again, we have to redefine success, and then we need to prepare our students in our universities to aspire to true success. I tell students all the time, write your eulogy. What do you want, when they're on your last day on this earth, what do you want somebody to say about your life that would make you proud? And then go make it true. So many people live life as a series of events. I'm going to graduate, then I'm going to get a job, then I'm going to, buy a house, and then we're going to have kids and send them to college. I meet very few people who see life as a journey with an ultimate end and making decisions in the context of what you want your life to be. That's what we need to teach the students. That's what the faculty at this university needs to feel, that they're on a higher calling. I would love to see your university here in this community be a symbol of hope in the world for tomorrow. That we're not creating students who get better paying jobs. We're creating tomorrow's leaders. And everybody will want to be a part of this university, and be a part of healing the brokenness of the world. We're at a really tipping point. I have never seen reasonable people like I see in this room more concerned about the future of the world than right now, for many different reasons, whether it's education or it's international conflict or the fact that our political leaders can't talk to each other with respect and dignity. It's broken because we have never learned to listen with empathy and judgment, without judgment, simply to validate the worth of others. I know, again, I've never been 80 speeches last year, never had a debate on what I just said to you. Nobody debates what I just said to you. They just don't know how to do it. We don't debate there's a moon, but we don't know how to get there. I mean, just because you see the moon doesn't mean you know how to get there. I'm giving you a world. I'm not an academic. I'm a simple accountant who's been blessed with a message that you all have given me the privilege of sharing here today that would heal the brokenness in the world. And I would think each one of you would want to be a part of that, to heal, to give an opportunity for your children and future generations to be part of an organization that genuinely cares about them. Does that make sense?
So we were having a conversation earlier about leadership being able to transcend your own life, and that being the ultimate objective. You've talked about you not wanting to sell your companies, but how do you bulletproof this culture of care and this culture of well-being of people that work for us beyond, you know, having it on a trust or a poison pill? How do you make it bulletproof through a culture so that given the situation where the company is sold, that it doesn't just crumble and it goes into the destructive capitalism style?
First of all, what I tell people is that if you ever waver from this direction, I will come back and haunt you. So I first threatened them. And then after I threatened them, this is what started. Brian Wellinghoff, about 18 or 19 years ago, asked me at dinner, what's my greatest fear? And this is in the very early stages of this journey. And I said, my greatest fear is we were blessed with a vision that could heal the world and that would die with me. I've seen many great leaders leave organizations and the organization goes like that. It happened to us in our church. My mentor was the rector of our church. He was a phenomenal rector, and when he got called to be the Bishop of South Carolina, our church fell apart overnight without him. And when Brian asked me my greatest fear, I said, my greatest fear is that without me, that it would fall apart. So we got up the next morning and said, okay, Brian, you identified a fear. What are we going to do to address the fear? Because I'm not one that worries about things. I do something. So the next morning we said, okay, how do great religions survive their founder? They articulate their beliefs, which we have, and then they have disciples who tell stories that carry their belief for generations, okay? Great religions have survived the test of their founding father, sometimes lose a direction even there. So what we decided is we needed to create disciples. It can't be Bob's belief. We needed everybody in the company to believe that this is the way we were called to leave. So we started a university. We knew we couldn't send people back to universities because we teach management, we don't teach leadership. So we started leadership, and the beauty is we started without any context of how to do it. So we started with a clean whiteboard, and we started teaching. You know, the ideas of this team came up with, we're going to teach empathetic listening, recognition and celebration, and culture of service. You know, we thought, great, that'll do it, okay? We started teaching it, and again, as Raj says, we saw grown men and women come to tears when we taught them how to be a leader, because they realized they'd hurt the very people they loved. They thought they were loving them, but they were actually hurting them by their behavior. And so we started getting this feedback. Oh my God, 95% of the feedback when we teach those 3 courses is this statement: it changed my life. When we started teaching this, about 6 months later, I traveled to Minneapolis to one of our operations. You know, I know we were starting to teach it. I wasn't quite sure how we were teaching these classes because Brian and the team were doing it. And a young lady walked up to me, I'd say she's in her 30s, early 30s, and she said, Mr. Chapman, I just took your listening class at your university. And I said, really, what was it like? And she said, it changed my life. And I said, wait, we taught a class at work that changed your life? And she said, yes, I now know how to raise my 2-year-old daughter. Well, I mean, that went right to my heart. And I started traveling around the country and sitting down with people that took our classes. And then I went to some of the graduation, and I'd see, and we'd ask the graduates, stand up and say, who are you going to tell about this class, and what are you going to tell them? And people would stand up in tears say, I'm going to tell my dad, I'm going to tell my mother, I'm going to tell my wife, because they feel they've been transformed. So again, on this journey, we're a manufacturing company, okay? We do basic things, the Industrial Revolution things. And we're viewed as the answer to world peace, okay? Our product is not our machinery. Our product is these lives that we have the privilege of leading. And to see them go home, as Raj talked about the plant in northern Wisconsin, there's about 500 people in a town of 1,500. I say to our people, we will do more to impact the young children in this university than our schools and our churches. Because if we treat those people in this community with respect and dignity, they'll raise better kids, the schools will have better participation, and we will be the most positive force for good in this community, which has been the case. So again, I have an average intelligence, blessed with a message, and if I can do it, you can do it, okay? But you got to have a good business model. You need that safe bus, and then you got to teach people how to care, and that's what we are here to. We're not trying to convince you of everything. We're trying to share our blessing, and we're trying to embrace the early adopters, people who believe what we believe and want to join us to start healing this brokenness in the world. I've met some incredible people here today. I thought we had incredible participation from the students this morning. The discussion at lunch, I'm really encouraged by what I feel, the openness to this dialogue, because Raj is conscious capitalism. I just think we take conscious capitalism to conscious leadership, okay? Conscious leadership is focused on the people we have the privilege of leading, making sure we have a good business model, and we treat them with respect and dignity, and we send them home every night knowing that who they are and what they do matters, and we will profoundly change the world and heal the brokenness we're all feeling. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Bob. And certainly, conscious leadership is one of the key tenets of conscious capitalism, and in some way, that is what brings us here. This is, as we told you, the first event of a conscious leadership community that we want to launch as the Conscious Capitalism chapter and as the Conscious Enterprise Center. So we invite you to start the journey with us. We may have one or two questions, time for one or two questions, but before that, I wanted to ask you, Bob, in your journey as a leader and getting to know other leaders that want to go into this journey, what's your experience about the feeling of having a community of leaders that truly believe these concepts, these values, this philosophy?
Well, one of the things I want to mention, again, Raj and I wrote a book, and we were told that if the book sold 5 to 10,000, it'd be a successful business book, and we just topped 110,000 copies in 8 languages around the world. And then Harvard wrote the case study about the same time, and it's now one of Harvard's better selling case studies with 80 university studies. So the message, the purpose of that is the validation of the message, validated by the interest in the book, validated by the interest, in the Harvard case study, and validated by the fact that people like Raj, Simon Sinek, Bill Urey have come in and seen what they have seen. So I would say to you, to all of you, this message there's no debate on this message. I'm sure if I asked each of you to raise your hand who believe in this message, you would raise your hand, because I've never had anybody, 80 speeches last year around the world debate this. It's just I don't know how to go from business focus to human focus, okay? Okay, you don't have to, again, so I would say to you, for all of you, my challenge for all of you is, I hope my message goes to your heart, that when you think, do you want the kids that you brought into this world, do you want the university of all these students to go out into a world and be a source of healing? Do you want to be a source of healing? When you reach your last day, will you look back on your life and say, I made a difference in this world? Not that I was wealthy and that I had a successful business. Were you a source of healing in this world? And that's what I hope you are, because we in business can do that. So I think I forgot your original question.
What a community is a good part of that journey.
Yes, because I think our hope is to start a movement, okay? So we have conscious capitalism, which began with the Whole Foods model, of good food, healthy living, and then of course, unfortunately, when Raj shared with me one time, even Whole Foods, which John Mackey is a brilliant individual, created an amazing company, but even Whole Foods' business model failed. Okay, Whole Foods became known as Whole Price. Okay, and Whole Foods, despite being the kind of the center of conscious capitalism, eventually Whole Foods announced when it was still public they were going to lay off 500 people at corporate headquarters so they could lower their price but not share their not compromise their profitability. They sacrificed 500 people at corporate headquarters at Whole Foods to try and satisfy the investors who were worried about the future of Whole Foods. So it's a natural, even in a company of incredible financial success of Whole Foods, and even the idea, they fell prey to giving the investors what they needed, which is, we're going to let people go to make, so we can lower our price to be more affordable for our food. So I want to emphasize, you can't be any better to your people than your business model. If your business model fails, you're going to hurt your people, okay? So your primary, I don't want you, this is not just about being nice. It is making sure that you have a robust business model and then sharing it with others in the community. Because again, we have a lot of people, the success of our case study, the success of our business said people want to do this. They just don't know how. So I would say there is a community growing around the world stimulated by Raj's, the healing organization, Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last. Remember, Simon Sinek uses a great example because he studied the United States military and he studied businesses. Think of this statement he makes. In the military, we honor those who give of themselves in service of others. And in business, we give bonuses to people who sacrifice others in service of themselves. Simon's statement is, if we can teach military leaders your primary responsibility is the men and women in your command, why can't we teach business leaders your primary responsibility is the men and women in your care? The answer is we can, we are, and we could heal a lot of the brokenness and create a community of leaders. So my challenge to this great university here in Monterey is you could be a source of healing in the world if you took those students who you have in your care for 2 or 4 year programs and make sure when you hand them that diploma, you can look them in the eye and their parents in the eye and said, you are ready to go out into the world and be a true leader that has the skills and courage to care for others. Go forth in the world and do good. Not you got a degree and you got a 3.8 average and and you got honors student. We just need our universities to be the foundation of creating caring leaders, so we can start sending disciples out into the world and because again the kids love this message. I think the reaction of your student this morning was great. It gives them hope, not just to get a job, but to have them be a source of healing in the world and to create a community of caring. So we're in the very early stages of trying to create a movement because we believe we've been blessed with a model that could heal the world. And so we're looking for people who believe what we believe and want to join us. I'm not here to sell anybody anything. I'm here to share a blessing we've been given in hopes that we've touched your heart and that you want to be a part of this healing movement.
Well, I think that's an excellent invitation. We're going to be missing the questions, but we're going to be staying around with Bob for a few minutes here. We have a gift for all of you here present. Before you get out, we have one of Bob's books, a copy of them. So please take them home and join the community. Like Bob said, it's an important way to persevere.
It'll be the greatest joy in your life. The feedback we get, if I told you the stories that I've heard in this journey, you would all be sobbing with hope.
Yeah, with hope. Thank you very much.